Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. My name is Henry, and this is a bonus episode covering Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which, you guessed it, is directed by Lee Cronin, written and directed by. It stars Jack Rayner, Leia Costa, May Kalamaui, Natalie Grace, Shiloh Molina, Billy Roy, and the synopsis is: the young daughter of a journalist disappears into the desert without a trace. 8 years later, the broken family is shocked when she is returned to them, as what should be a joyful reunion turns into a living nightmare. I just recently discussed Evil Dead Rise, which was Lee Cronin's first film, a few episodes ago when I talked about single location films, which you can check out if you want to. I was a big fan of that. I was really impressed by Lee Cronin's direction. That was his breakout film. And when this was announced, I was very much looking forward to it, not only because it was Lee Cronin, but I think that The Mummy, as much as I like the Brendan Fraser one, and I do like the Tom Cruise one to a certain extent, and I did review that a few years ago, there isn't really a true horror version of The Mummy that we've had in the modern day. And I thought Cronin matched with James Wan, who did the Conjuring films, the Aquaman films, amongst others. I thought that they would do great together. And I think I'm basically with the majority here. I was fairly underwhelmed by it, with the biggest problem being, it's called The Mummy, and there is almost no mummy in this whatsoever. It essentially becomes a exorcist film that we've seen millions of times. A young girl gets possessed, she goes crazy, other people in the house get possessed, and the family begins to crumble. What I hoped this film would have been is, whether it's a kid or an adult, a mummified supernatural creature, person, whatever, trying to destroy the world, or sort of becoming like a slasher film in a way. Just something at least to make it feel like a mummy film. And I was reading that in the development of this, Lee Cronin wanted to move away from the ancient being who does all the killing and crazy things and make it be a average person. To me, that's a mistake. I know not everyone watches the mummy films for like the historical adventure side, but that's something that I really enjoy. I like spending time in either an ancient period or at least in kind of locations and dealing with those things. But the Egyptian curse is sprinkled throughout this, but there's so little development with that. You don't even really know the true motivation behind it all. I thought all the stuff in Egypt when they're living there at the beginning, that first act, that was solid. The opening scene was great in the tomb. Then, minor spoilers here, the girl gets kidnapped and there's a sandstorm and they don't know what to do and they have to just leave after a while and they don't know what happened to their kid. But once they make it back to Albuquerque, which of course it happens in Albuquerque, it actually reminded me the most of the Pet Sematary remake from 7 or 8 years ago. It essentially has the exact same story. The sound design was really good. You had good practical effects. The gore was very effective. But actually on that, at least on Letterboxd, people really overhyped how crazy the gore is in this. I was expecting something along the lines of Terrifier because of what people were saying. I don't think it's anywhere near that. I thought Evil Dead Rise was much more gruesome and squeamish than this one was, aside from maybe a couple of moments. Overall, the casting was fine. Jack Rayner is very hit and miss for me. I like him in Macbeth, Midsummer, Sing Street. He was miscast in this. For some reason, he felt very detached from everything, and I just didn't totally buy his emotional moments. And I know the budget was fairly small in comparison to the Tom Cruise film, for example. I wish they had broken more outside of the house for the story, because it's all, for the most part, within the house. And there's only so much you can do with that visually. And at least in Evil Dead Rise, you had an entire apartment complex to play around with. The editing, I think, also hurt the horror aspects of the film, because it seemed like whenever there was a really gruesome moment or there was some kind of horror sequence, for example, not to give too much away, but there's a funeral towards the end of the film, but as soon as things start happening, they cut away. Like a gory moment happens and then suddenly, boom, we're on to the next scene and the aftermath of that. Like, wasn't that crazy? And that just took me out of it consistently, as uncomfortable as it is, let us stay in those moments. If we're here for horror, let us experience it. I know a lot of people hated on the runtime. I do agree it is a little long. I didn't have that much of a problem with it, surprisingly. I thought it was overall well paced, but due to a combination of the majority of what I've been saying already, most of the big wow moments, those became more tiresome rather than scary. And overall, I wouldn't say the movie felt that scary. Like the atmosphere wasn't always there. The relationship between the family members, that was okay enough to keep me interested, but not much more than that. I don't know, considering that Blumhouse did this, James Wan's production company was involved, New Line Cinema. I don't know if they let Lee Cronin have free reign with this and he wanted to make the possession aspect front and center, or if that was more of a production standpoint, like here, we need to market this better, so let's have it be more possession than Mummy. And even though I was underwhelmed by this film, I still will watch what Cronin does in the future. It just might be a good idea to get some other writers involved. Couple last things. Everything with the grandmother, that was effective. If you're at all squeamish when it comes to things with skin, toenails, fingernails, you may not want to watch this or watch it on an empty stomach. The makeup was good. I think the lead performance by the young girl, that was very impressive for someone that age. Light 3 out of 5.